All right, this is coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have AJ in the Woods. We're joined by Allison, JC, and Zach of AJ in the Woods. And we're here to talk about their new record, Stay Steady, available now on all streaming platforms. Also, if you go to ajinthewoods.com, you can get a vinyl of it, or at their show, which is August 20th at the House of Blues, AJ in the Woods, with opening acts Brent Kirby, Mikey Silas, and Morning Bird. It's a jamming lineup for sure. You guys may have heard our prior episodes with Mikey and Brent, and you guys will know that those two are huge supporters of the Cleveland music scene and a huge part of the Cleveland music scene, and so is AJ in the Woods. Any crazy idea I've had to do a benefit show to help a student of mine get a service dog, or to help a teacher friend of mine who is having pregnancy issues, like any crazy way to help the community, I pitched some wild week of streamed shows or whatever. JC and Allison have always been down. They have also done their own fair share of community support with the Women's Rock CLE concert series. It's important to support our friends and celebrate their successes, because their successes are your successes. And it's super fun to brag about your friends. It's way better than bragging about anything you've ever done, right? At least I think. Anywho, I've done a lot of work with JC over the last few years at Front Street Social. I host an open mic night there every other Wednesday. It happens every Wednesday. I'm there every other. So this is someone I get to see a lot, and it's really cool to see them diving into their expression. So, August 20th at the House of Blues. It's going to be a really rocking show. Definitely, if you can, make your way out there. We're going to listen to a track off their new record. This is Home off Stay Steady. Home, AJ in the Woods. The album's Stay Steady. Available now on all streaming platforms. August 20th is the show. Before we get into it, if you guys can like, rate, review, subscribe to one of the podcast platforms, it really helps me keep talking to cool guests and sharing their insights with you. At the very end of this episode, I think it's going to be the first time, and it's a rough draft of it, but my dear, dear friend, Mr. Dakota Michael Kroos, gave me this really rad gift that is at the end of this episode. That's my cat, bragging about how cool it is. Tell him, Noodle. Thanks. But anywho, it was dearly sweet of him, and it's wicked. It's wicked cool. Anywho, here's my talk with JC, Allison, and Zach of AJ in the Woods. So, to kind of jump into it, to kind of set the background, I don't remember when we met, like, as far as, like, playing gigs, but I remember it was solo gigs, and I think it was the Grog Shop. I don't think that's when I met you guys. But as far as AJ in the Woods, it started off with just you and JC, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it started just us in January of 2015 was our first thing as AJ in the Woods, and we did Brent Kirby's 10x3.
Okay.
Yeah, and then from there we built it up. We added bass first, and then we added drums. And then Zach was not our first drummer, but came on pretty shortly after, I think 2017, maybe?
Sure, something like that.
Yeah. And then Zach's been with us ever since then. So Zach's seems like a core member for us. And so now we got the four, and then we added fiddle, Piper, who does fiddle and backup vocals for us. So we're normally a 5-piece now. It's pretty exciting.
That's super awesome. And well, Zach's a hell of a player, my friend.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think I met you at the Grog Shop. You already knew them, but I think that's the first time I met you.
Okay, that I think that checks out. But how did you and Allison, JC start playing together? Like before even going to Brent Kirby?
So we met through a mutual friend. So we both went to Baldwin Wallace College, now it's university. And then we didn't meet each other in college, but we had a mutual friend from college, and she had at that time she was living in Little Italy and had a birthday party, and we met there, and then we were just like friends on social media for like a year or two, and then ended up at the same open mic. And at that time I was doing some solo stuff, and I was looking for some other people to play with, JC had been in bands before, but right at that point, didn't have anyone he was playing with. So we just decided, hey, he asked me over to jam. And that was like the fall of 2014.
Okay.
And then, yeah, went from there.
Were you playing banjo at that time?
No. So
Okay.
I was playing guitar. So it was just two guitars. So AJ in the Woods started as two guitars and vocals. And then I didn't pick up the banjo until maybe 2016, I think. I've always loved the instrument and wanted to play it. And then my roommate at the time, her mom's friend knew I wanted to play banjo and had like an old one sitting in her closet, and she gave it to me. So that's what I started playing on.
That's because I remember at the grog shop. I think it was the first. At least it was the first show we did together. You're working on those rolls, and I was asking you questions about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like. But okay, so did it start like you had these songs written and needed a group to back it up, or the songs that are now AJ in the Woods songs, like did they come out of playing together? Did some of that solo material make it to this record? I guess
None of the solo material made it to the current record. No, when we first started playing out, I did my solo stuff. It was my solo material, and then JC would play with me, and then it was pretty shortly, like we started writing, together pretty much right away, and then have since within like the first year kind of like took all of those out. So everything on the new record is all written new as AJ in the Woods.
Because one thing I found really fascinating was like at that Monday night at the Front Street at the songwriting what Music Mondays, is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, I think it's Music Mondays. Yeah,
at Music Mondays when the power went out, right? I think that was like, for me, seeing you guys just play together, I'm like, I see this dynamic, all right, that maybe wasn't as clear before. Maybe it was because there was no power, so everyone had to listen. It kind of it made a 10x3 per circumstance, or everyone had to like tune in and listen. But so that really kind of diving into like your like the melody and song structure with JC's style is like, I wonder how this works. So to kind of dive into your guys' process a little bit, is it kind of like presenting chord progressions to each other, then working off melodies, or like do you present a song and JC adds?
So it is a 100% collaborative process. So normally JC will be like, this is a cool riff. I have this riff. And we'll either be in practice or he'll record it and send it to me. And then from that riff, I'll be like, this kind of sounds like a verse, or this kind of sounds like a chorus. And then, I'll work on vocal melodies to that. And then we'll sit together and be like, okay, like let's work through the structure. Okay, this sounds good. This sounds good as a verse. This sounds good as a chorus. Now write me, and I'll tell him I need a bridge. Write me a bridge. And so he'll take it back and figure out like what musically, guitar wise, would sound good with the bridge. And then I'll take it and I'll write all the melody over it, and then I'll add lyrics. And then the banjo usually comes after that, or if not, like right around, like the vocal melodies are there. And then from there we add drums, we add bass, we add fiddle, we add all the other parts.
Got it. Well, it makes sense. All the texture things come in after the structure exist.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting on the record, because now that it's come out on Friday, I've listened to the whole thing like 4 times. And JC gave me the test press of the vinyl, and like even there, like I have a horrible, I don't have a good record player, so I really couldn't like hear, like I was a horrible probably test press mix, because I was just hearing the song structure, and that was like really, I was like, how you guys built up some of these dynamics that like, or maybe don't have the same texture when it's just the two of you, or even in a live setting, because I mean, like there's recorded work, and that's its own thing, and that's its own practice and attempts, like, and then there's the live work, which is always going to be not as lush just because of it's in a different environment and it can't be the same every time. But seeing how like that recorded environment like brought out certain parts And then kind of thinking back to Monday when I was hearing those parts by themselves, it was like it really adds another level to it. So the texture coming in like how it does after the structure makes a lot of sense. Now, like because JC, I know with the record, and I know through conversation, like there's a whole like kind of like switch with the guitars, right? So what exactly was that? Was it taking it from the acoustic through the amplifier and switching to just straight electric?
Well, that's one of the things you and I bonded on. We were both putting an acoustic guitar through an electric amp and then just sending it home. And I was getting into, I felt like I was getting limited.
Okay.
Because when you're playing an acoustic guitar to like the style that I do, there's only so much you can go with 13 strings and high action, right?
Yeah.
Before you're like, I feel like I'm getting limited or slowed down or bogged down by
fighting
the instrument itself. Yeah. So, in practice, I bring out electric and like, nah, this fucking sucks. And then go back to doing the acoustic. And then I'm like, yeah, but I could really get, this tone with an electric. And I just kept fighting with it. And then one day I built a Telecaster to the way I want it, out of parts from a 1985 52 reissue.
Okay.
And I'm like, if I can build the guitar to the way I want it, maybe I'll be happier with using electric guitar. And I was. There is still a like a bounce to the 13 gauge strings on an acoustic that is tonality still there. It's just the style. And the reason I play the way I do is because I didn't really have many friends growing up. I definitely didn't have friends that could play music with me. So I kind of learned how to lead and rhythm at the same time. I kind of had to teach myself that.
Yeah. That makes sense with a lot of your, like, after knowing you for so long and hearing you play, like, you definitely do vibe on both, like, the Hendrixy, like, lead and rhythm bits where you're accompanying yourself.
Yeah, and that was just out of necessity. That was not like, I'd probably be a different player if I had a brother or sister that I played with, but I was just, only child trying to figure it out the way I went. And so with the acoustic, like, don't get me wrong, I love playing acoustic. It's one of my favorite, you can't lie with an acoustic guitar.
Right.
You can't hide. You're right there. And if you're not a good player, everyone's going to know you're not a good player. So I'm a firm believer everything you write and do needs to be on acoustic, because sonically and tonality, you can tell if you're lying or not, right?
Right.
So switching over to the electric, it came at a like slow grade uphill battle, and so I was comfortable with it. So like this album release show, I'm mixing everything. I'm still going to do acoustic and electric. We're going to trade on and off because sometimes songs call for an acoustic.
Right. Like Gypsy, I've heard that so many times on that acoustic. It'd be weird to hear it without the electric live.
Yeah. And then, that's one of the ones I switched over to electric.
Yeah?
Yeah, because you just, I don't know, there's a full, like, that's the other thing. Like, with my rig, it took me a long time to get comfy with the rig. I tried a lot of amps. Oh. And then I got high on mushrooms one day, and I was just playing with my guitar acoustically.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Zeppelin, and I was listening to Hendrix. I was listening to, the 60s stuff. And I go, well, shit, they're just straight into a Marshall. That's the tone I like. I'll just do that. And I built the guitar, found a Marshall that worked for me, and the way Allison and I write, and then that's kind of, here's the thing: people get so lost on gear.
Right.
You can go down a rabbit hole. Well, I need this pedal, I need this compression, I need this reverb, I need this, that, and this. And what happens is you lose your tone. And a lot, those guys with the pedal board that the size of a pool table, they can hit a note and make it go for 6 weeks. And I'm fascinated by that. I think that's awesome. But guitar playing is playing a guitar.
Right.
Not playing your feet on a board, and
yeah.
So going straight into that Marshall, the only pedals I use are Holy Grail reverb, because that Marshall doesn't have a reverb tank. If it did, I wouldn't have that pedal. And a boost, just because I don't want to walk over and manually switch the boost on my amp. I can just do that with a pedal.
Right. No, that boost is clutch, especially for the acoustic thing. And people are coming to hear you play. You know what I mean? They're not coming to hear your pedals play. And like I totally agree, especially like doing the open mic night circuit and just doing working at Guitar Center or working at any of these places. You meet the gearheads, And
Yeah.
this is for any instrument. You meet the gearheads that get taken away from not even just playing the instrument, but playing music. They get more distracted from that aspect of what it is, and more into the specs of it. And those specs help in certain situations.
Oh, absolutely, they do.
And like they should amplify who you are to some degree, not hide. So I definitely agree with that. So that's all you need. You just plug straight in. And I know, as a guy who uses pedals that use like my loop and shit, it's a different thing. But when it comes down to it, really, that's all that needs to be there. And if
and what you do is great because you're by yourself when you do those.
Yeah. So
you're enhancing your sound. You're not covering up your sound to reproduce something else.
Well, I appreciate that. Trying, but that's the idea. Like, to not cover yourself and just project better. So like hearing that, I appreciate that. But so that's another thing I wanted to ask, because we've talked about this in passing, but I found it fascinating. Is you said you had a 1985 remake Telecaster, and you always go for the instrument of 85, right?
Yeah.
And that, like, how'd that come about?
Dude, I have no idea. I have ADHD, dysgraphia, dyslexia, dyscalculia, severe learning disabilities. I always have, right? And part of that, as you know, being a special ed teacher, we with those kind of challenges fall into like these pockets of obsession.
Yeah.
For sometimes it could be a video game. That's why I don't play video games anymore, because I was getting obsessive over it. And you just go balls to the wall with that obsession. For whatever reason, I got really into collecting things from 1985, the year I was born.
Oh.
I have watches. I have a Jeep. I have guitars. And part of it, I think, is there's something fascinating about knowing that object has spent the same amount of time on this planet being what it is as I have. So that guitar, I mean, I got the body of that guitar with the pickups in it. The neck was gone. It's still visibly beat up. I never cleaned it. That thing has a story, and it's lived an entire life for 32 years up until the point I got it when I was 32 and built it. And now it has a whole new life. That could have been someone's favorite instrument. That could have been someone's first guitar. That person could have died, and then someone dismantled it for parts, and then I found it and brought it back to life. That's a story, and I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Like,
no,
it's a weird.
Totally makes sense.
Some people collect Pokemon cards.
Yeah, they're right next to Front Street. We see them every week.
Every day.
Dave Myers comes in every Wednesday.
And that just goes to vintage instruments in general. I mean, people like vintage stuff because, one, it was made better, I think. Two, there's a story to it, and three, it's its own. I'm a firm believer that when you put a lot of energy into something, that thing has its own existence that maybe not be measurable to us, but there's an energy, there's a matter of factness to it. Right.
Yeah.
So Tyler Ray has that guitar right now. He was fixing a pickup on it, and he called me yesterday. He goes, "Dude, the pickup fix. This thing is a beast. It's its own little thing." He goes, "I haven't played a guitar like that." And he's playing it through the phone, and I'm like, "See, now when you play it, it sounds completely different." I'm like, "Are you going through your box?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Dude, I never knew that guitar sounded like that," because it sounds completely different to me when I touch it,
Right.
But it's its own thing now. So it's cool too when someone picks up a piece of history that maybe belongs to you or me, and they can feel that kind of vibe with it.
Right.
Instead of just buying something new off the shelf.
Definitely. And there's something too, we find it's interesting because like in rooms or historic places, that's kind of like accepted. You know what I mean? Like, This is a fill in the blank. This is the whatever monument. And or this is where this happened. We've preserved this house. This is where Edison invented the bulb. You know what I mean? Like wherever, like little historic spots like that. I'm trying to come up with a better example. But like those historic spots have that energy, and you kind of walk into that. And people, I feel, are more understanding of that, like walking into history. But if a place can hold that type of thought and inspiration and energy, it makes sense that a tool or an instrument, which is just a tool of
an instrument is a tool, yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
would be able to hold that as well. And
I agreed. Like Ginger, you played my guitar Ginger, the acoustic.
Yeah.
So that guitar was given to me by a music store as like a sponsor years and years ago, and it was brand new. And they said, pick one out. And I played tons of them. That was not the most expensive or the least expensive. I just played and it felt okay, right?
Right.
And then since I've owned that guitar, every AJ in the Woods song has been written on that thing before it goes to electric or anything else. And we were on the road on tour going, I think we were absolutely in Mississippi, and we stopped. I wanted to find dirt crossroads.
Nice.
I got out, picked up a handful of dirt and water and rubbed it all over that guitar. Now, I'll be damned if that guitar hasn't had a different vibe to it ever since. And you can still visibly see the dirt on it.
Yeah.
And for any of your listeners who don't know the story, Robert Johnson, the most influential blues player, some call him the guy that invented the blues, was a notoriously horrible guitar player. And then one summer he disappeared and came back, and he could play blues better than anyone of the time, or guitar, that matter. And so it was said that he sold his soul at the crossroads of the devil to play blues guitar. And that's why he died at 27, which is also one of the beginnings of the 27 Club.
Right, right.
And I like that juju. I love that vibe. And I wanted some of that energy, and that guitar has that on it.
That's so cool. That's like, I, as a kid, my family, we took a trip to Clarksdale because my uncle recommended it. He travels everywhere, and they play, he's like a folk. He's into I'm trying to remember it'll come back to, he's like into folk music. And so we went down there to their recommendation, and there's 3 places where the crossroads cross, right? You go into Clarksdale, Mississippi, and there's the one with the big sign, and then further out in the highway, down that highway, they cross again, which is probably where you went. And I guess there's another one too. And but that's the thing too. That's like a historic spot or mythological spot, because who knows if that actually happened or not. Like, people who put their time in and shed and really work on themselves definitely come out better. It could be just that.
Absolutely.
But there's something cool to that darkness and
as a guitar player, that story is amazing, and it's it's infamous.
Right. So I remember going there too, it's, you walk back in time when you go there. I was talking with Jason Patrick Myers about this, because he's in Clarksdale now. He goes every year.
Did he move there?
No.
Oh,
he goes every year for like a mental clarity trip, like an Inspirato trip, and he'll hit the crossroads, and then he'll sit on a church steps and just write. And I think he plays a gig down there too or something.
Cool.
But there's this magic to places, and it's not hard to think that there'd be a magic to a tool. Another thing that is interesting, in the Cleveland Public Library, they have the desk that the guy who made Superman made it on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Superman's apparently a Cleveland creation.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But kind of off the topic of kind of establishing this mystique and presence that is put into a thing and resonates past its due. One thing I found really interesting was at that acoustic gig on Monday, you guys said, or JC, you said something about making sure you guys were in the groove, in reality, to preserve what you've done for your children, and so they can have this vinyl.
Keith Richards said that. He goes, once you're in the grooves, you're immortal. And he was talking about the grooves of a record. Right.
So one thing I just kind of wanted to ask as a group, because I know you guys as people and I see it, but as a group, what have you guys, is it important to kind of document and leave stuff for those to step up from? I guess I'm saying that in the wrong way.
Well, no, you said it the right way. I mean, we all listen to old records, Beatles, Zeppelin, ZZ Top. I mean, we all listen to those. It's like Jack White said, find the music you really like, and then find out who they listen to, and then find out who they listen to, and then find out who they listen to. And it's always a crossroad right back to the blues and rock and R&B start. So I think that's important. So yeah, I mean, I think it needs to be there for other people to hear. They might not like it. They might learn this is why I don't like it, or they might find a new genre of music they didn't know they enjoyed.
Definitely.
Right?
I definitely agree with the tracing of the roots for sure. And it makes clear the bits that are melded into that person. That's one on the side tangent. One thing that drives me crazy is a lot of people don't like to kind of be I am really into this thing. They come off with the mystique that they're completely coming up with this on their own. Like, and that blows my mind because we all wear band shirts of bands we like, but when it comes to talking about what we're playing, sometimes it's like, I don't know, I just came up with it. Like, no, that was totally a Hendrix influence thing. You can totally say
absolutely.
It, you know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody has influences, and you have to learn somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like the creativity is taking something that you like and you've heard and making it your own. Like that's why whenever we do play covers, we try to call it AJ in the Woods the cover, and not play it the same, not play it note for note. It's like, because it's been done and we love it for that reason. So we're going to take our own spin on it. So I think in even writing, it's like, okay, this might have been an inspiration. Well, how can we make it our own? How can we do it differently? How can we, expand on it?
As far as like with Allison, with your songwriting influences, who are some of the people who do influence you?
So I got really into the folk bluegrass sort of Americana scene. So it started off with the Avett Brothers back in like old school 2006. But kind of like crossed over to that, and now like I love Punch Brothers. I love I'm With Her, that sort of newgrass feel to it. And then it's just that's like I think my biggest inspiration at the moment, vocally and like melody wise, because we're a heavy rock band and I'm able to like belt and scream and do those notes, but I also want to have more nuance in my vocal style. And I have my background is in classical training. So like I'm a classically trained vocalist, I'm classically trained pianist, and I think all of that helps in what we're doing, especially like being able to like hit a super high note and then go down really low, and like how do you do that physically with your body and your voice in order to like pull that off. So like having that training is really helpful, and to not ruin your voice.
Right.
So I think like all of those influences that you wouldn't if like once you find that out, and if you listen to like, oh, okay, I can kind of hear it here when you go up into your head voice, or I'm gonna belt at this one because that's like the rock thing to do. And also like it depends too on like the situation, because when we played on Monday when the power was out, like if we were just the two of us and it was a little softer and I had the microphone, I might have went in my head voice for a couple notes. But at this point I was like, well, in order for people to hear me, I need to belt it out. So changing it depending on the situation too, I think is important.
Right. That's super interesting, because like all the skill set that falls into that, like you can get away with a lot with a mic as far as like low notes and making them like that breathy approach a lot of people use. So stepping off it is a whole nother thing. And one, like as far as like talking about the record and vocal nuance, the song Buckeye, like hearing that on the record, I remember like when JC gave me the press, or the test press, like that tune, I was like, holy shit. Like the choir and how you guys work the vocal arrangements, even though I didn't have a good mix of what I was hearing because my record player is trash, I was still like blown away by the parts. Like, can you kind of dive into the process for that one?
Sure. So that was JC's idea, right, JC, to do the kind of the backing choir, and then we had Madeline Finn help a little bit on some of our vocal production. So she did about like so she kind of helped formulate, especially in the bridge, that whole kind of like call and response part to it. So that was like extremely helpful. And then we got a bunch of friends. I have friends from BW that are musicians come into the studio, and there was baby Zach sang on it. And then Zach's a good singer.
I bet.
So he was on it as well. And like just it's one of those too, like we maybe had like 6 or 7 people, but just like being able to layer it made it sound like someday I'd love to do it with the whole choir, but it worked well on the record. So that was a really, really fun day doing all the backing for that.
That's like when you track though, like once you get the main thing done, it's like adding the spice is what's the most fun part because you get to see how it grows. But yeah, because I've heard that song a lot by itself, but hearing it in that context, it was like perfect. I was like, oh, that cool. Like the vocals fit so well. And there's even like in the bridge part of Adeline, the second track, that part hits differently with all the spices behind it too. It was really like with when you guys were addressing some of these like these textures and like how to place the banjo and how to place like the violin and like was this like all like listening back a million times or were some of these ideas brewing from when they were first written?
I think some of them were when they were first written, because like our, Mike Brown, who produced and recorded everything for us, like he would send us, back a mix, or we'd listen in the studio and be like, this needs to go up, this needs to be louder. Like we kind of knew what we wanted, but then there was a couple times where it was like, just it was listening 1,000 times, just listening to it over and over and over, and then all of us would listen individually, then we'd sit together, write out all of our notes to make sure we agreed on, it, and then we would send it back. And this was like after we recorded everything to do the mixing process. So like some of it we knew right away, and we were able to like get that done while we were in the studio for the first mix. But it was those little bits and pieces, those like 50-50, kind of deciding after the fact, oh, this would sound better here, this would sound a little better if it was a little higher here, this was too loud.
Yeah, that's like when you start to do the texting and emailing back and forth, and then you get the next mix, and like that gets to be the worst. Like it's so much better to be in the room, but when you're in that room, those speakers sound way more different than like it does in the car.
Oh yeah,
And we made sure it was like listen to it on your computer, listen to it in your car, listen to it on your amazing speakers, listen to it on your phone speakers, like get all of the different options. So you are 100% sure, we know what we want to change.
Was it so like, because I'm in the process right now with sea level stuff. We're doing the same bit, right? Going back and forth, sending the thing, turn that up, How do you make the snare further in the back but more present? You're like, what? Like, you know what I mean? It gets to be like, oh man, drums are the hardest to try to like navigate. The drum sound on the record's awesome. I wanted to ask.
Thank you. Drum sound is hard to navigate because I've tried doing some stuff at home, and it's a challenging thing to mix. Mike Brown did a really nice job, and like most recordings where we started with the drums, I played along to them in the room to scratch tracks, that we'd put down, but the Mike did the way that he approached it was he always wanted to leave space at the top. And so he didn't even the drums are very open sounding, and he didn't overdo it. And at first I was kind of thought that they sounded a little thin. But I got used to the sound, and now I'm very pleased with how it all came together.
It's interesting kind of hearing it by itself too, like drums being like everything's next to each other, all the mics, like as far as frequencies and like stuff getting phased in and out, that's the worst because everything's crammed together, and it's the hardest to get that tight and like potent for whatever mix.
Zach, tell them about cutting a hole in your drum our first day there.
What?
Yeah, so we went in there the first morning of so we went in to record Adeline, right? It was like, all right, we're gonna just do this one track thing. That was the first thing from this album that we recorded, and I'm setting up, and I had been playing with my bass drum with a full head on the front.
Right. Okay.
Because I don't know, it's just what I had, and I like that sound like in a live room. But we get into the recording studio, and Mike Brown walked in, and it was like he didn't even say hello. He just looked at it, and he was like, "Can we cut a hole in that?" I was like, So we, JC said, "Look, I'll buy you a new head. Just do it." So we got a styrofoam bowl out of the kitchen and used it to trace on the front. And then I got out my pocket knife and we just sliced the, 4 or 5 inch hole in the head, and we recorded with that. It sounded great.
That's awesome. That's like
That was his introduction to Mike Brown.
Yeah.
like it was at Superior Sounds, right? Where you guys tracked?
No.
No?
Lava
No,
Okay.
Lava Room.
Lava Room.
Lava
Okay,
Room
okay.
recording. Yep.
All right, cool. That's dope. Like but you gotta respect the guy who just knows how to make this room work, and
Mhm.
it sucks when you pay that $40 for the head or whatever.
Yeah. So he knew what was going to work, right?
Right. But like, so who did the chains then? Whose idea was the chains?
I don't remember where that idea came from. I did the recording in the room. We just dropped them against a wooden, like
Box,
a piece
right?
of plywood or something. Yeah.
It's perfect
Isn't
for the
it- is that
beginning
where-
of that.
Is that where JC also stomped through? Or was that something different? He stomped through the board?
That was something different. That was on
Okay.
Buckeye, I think.
That was on
I
Buckeye.
broke a floor.
You broke a floor? Cool.
We
I also
brought
weighed
in these
260
little-
pounds at the time, so that's part of it.
We
Well,
brought in these little riser things to stomp on
Yeah.
to get a little bit of like reverberation for stomps. And we both
okay.
put on our cowboy boots and wailed at it. And he stepped right, broke through a like 3/4 inch piece of plywood.
Plywood. Awesome.
That's the most Bruce Lee recording.
When they say stomp, you stomp, man.
That's right. But even like at Front Street on Monday, I was like, man, you're smacking the floor really hard. That's an old building. That'd be awesome if it was
It's
just...
because I'm not good at keeping time in my head.
It's interesting.
100
It's definitely
110% legit.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's something you gotta feel, right? It's interesting because music's all written out, and it's something everyone like. If you had to like, if you could write your emotions out like a piece of music's written out, like everyone would understand each other completely, because when music's written out, it's to the T exactly what moment happens and what pitch it happens, and like, but it doesn't become emotion. It doesn't become an emotion until someone plays it, right? So it's so interesting that something so theoretical is something that's really all just about feeling, or something that, or that the inverse of that, something that's so felt has to be written so theoretically to be explained. And like I don't know, it's just an interesting loop I've been in recently, because like trying to teach is like you're trying to teach all these technical things, but really it only matters if you can feel it, in the feeling of it. And like it makes 110 sense that like you would have to slam your foot to feel that beat,
Oh, yeah. It's always been like that, too. I mean, I have no idea why.
Yeah, you stomp a lot, and especially when you're playing a duo thing. And there's a lot of bass drum in the music, and we link up all the time over it, right? So JC will turn around, and he's watching my leg, and I'm watching his hand, and that's how it all connects.
Yeah, I don't have to stomp as much when I got, the timekeeper behind me, Father Time back there. I can feel it through that.
But it's different because you can feel it through that. And like,
Oh, yeah.
Is that part of why you usually play with no shoes? Is to feel that?
I honestly don't have a good reason why I don't play with shoes. I think part of it is I feel more grounded and attached, to the feel of the music. I barely like wearing shoes to begin with, and when I'm playing live, like I can move, I'm not slipping. I feel more controlled and center when I'm barefoot, I guess. I've always been like that. I hate wearing shoes, and I definitely will not play live wearing shoes.
Hell yeah. No,
I mean, it's been 20 degrees out of bright winter, and I've been on a metal stage doing it.
Oh my God, that'd be numbing.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel better. I feel more attached to my guitar, and I feel more in tune with the music.
It makes sense. Like there's a whole like theory of like people who ground, who do the shoeless thing into like even like sleep with a grounded bedded bedding. Like they put it, like they plug. It's like a sheet that people plug into the ground outlet of the house to be
that's weird.
grounded. Yeah, like but in the whole theory of it, it's like we're all electrical impulse machines, right? So
Yeah.
when you wear shoes, you're cutting yourself off from being grounded.
I believe that.
Like there must be a thing to it. Like you do it, Benny does it from Quasi Kings. Like, if my feet didn't smell as bad, I might do it.
There you go. You gotta try it, man.
Benny,
Give it a shot.
yeah. Well, was it maybe next Might Night? Let's see how many people we can get off the list if I do that.
There you go. Nice.
But so another thing I wanted to, because I know you guys have a limited amount of time. Because where are you, JC? You're like out of town.
No, I'm at the bar right now.
Oh, you're
He
at the
was
bar?
out of town this weekend.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I just
I got
couldn't
back
come
last
over.
Got it.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch upon is like community-wise, how much you guys do. And if you guys can explain, like, I know it's been maybe a couple years because of the pandemic, but the Women's Rock show that you guys did and how that came about.
Sure. So Women Rock CLE, hopefully we will do it in 2023. It's been with COVID and everything, been a little crazy. So it started as JC and I were like, we wanted, I had never, like, it was really rare for us to play with, other bands that had a female fronted lead. Like, didn't matter what genre it was. Like, it was just rare. It was always, male fronted. And I'm like, how cool would it be, if we had like something, it doesn't have to just be our style, just to like kind of like get that together. And JC's like, well, let's do it. Let's like, if I'm venting about something, he's like, well, then let's try to fix it. Let's, do something cool with it. So the first year we contacted Happy Dog. It was just 3 bands. Do you remember who it was, JC?
Punch Drug Tagalongs.
Was it
Maddie Finn?
Maddie Finn, yeah, and us, and we did. So it was just the 3 of us at Happy Dog, and we did Women Rock CLE. Was like a all female fronted acts, and all of the ticket sales and everything was going to go to a women's shelter, because we wanted, like, if we're going to get everybody out, we wanted to, like, at least make it for a good cause. So that went off really well. And then the next year we're like, well, we want to grow it. We want to like have more bands. And we had played House of Blues doing the Whiskey and White Lightning Festival. So like we, had done that before, and, we're thinking of places to do it. And JC's like, House of Blues. I'm like, oh, no, they wouldn't never. He's like, no, we're going to send him an email. So being him, he's like, go big. The worst they can do is say no. So we sent them an email, and they're like, this is a fantastic idea. We think this is wonderful. So we did it. It was main stage. I think we had 5 or 6, I'd have to look back, but bands that played, and it was wonderful because it was a multi-genre festival. Like, that was the big thing. Like, female fronted is not a genre. It's multi-genre. You're going to get a little bit of everything, but you're going to see super powerhouse women on stage, and all of the guys, that are in their bands and bandmates that support these women. So we did that. And then also all of the ticket sales, all the proceeds went to Laura's Home Women's Shelter. And then we did it again the following year, House of Blues. They loved it, wanted it back. We expanded it. So we had the main stage, and then we also had the foundation room. So it was nice because like we did like people would apply, and then we had, like a committee that would kind of choose, who they wanted and like the reasons why. And then we had planned to do it again for 2020, and we weren't allowed to announce, but we had the people. And then when the pandemic hit, it kind of stopped that. So I'm hoping next year we can do it again, and we're going to offer everyone who's accepted in 2020, first spot to return if they want. But yeah, so that's just been like, it's been so much fun, and it's great because like for some of, the bands, like they might not, have had a chance to play House of Blues before. It could be the biggest gig, they've played yet. And it's just a great community building event. It's great to like be able to support other bands, in the community that like we might not ever play a show with because they're not the same genre as us.
I think
So-
Neha has the best women rock CLE story I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So Neha, she is in the band Hera.
Okay.
So she saw Women Rock CLE the first year at House of Blues. And then, so Neha's actually, she's going to play, she's going to sing backup at her album release.
Nice.
She's on the record. She's singing backup on the record, and she's going to sing her parts at the album release. Which
You didn't know her the first time she saw
Yeah.
Women Rock CLE.
Yeah, she just got invited with some friends, and she went, and she had told us, so the next year, so she, within a year, started a band, recorded music, and started playing shows and applied and got accepted into Women Rock CLE. So a year later, she was back on stage. Yeah. And yeah, so she told us that when we were like backstage, and it was just like blew us away, you know, that like we could, you know, help inspire by creating this event and having all these other wonderful musicians involved, inspire other people to like write music and create music. And, you know, they have a great fan base now. And like, we're just so happy that we can help support the Cleveland community, because it's so like tight knit musically, and I really like that it's not competitive. You know, it's about like, it's really about building each other up, and like, you know, if you can't play a show with someone for some reason, you'll try to play with them another time. You know, it's like everybody understands how hard it is as a musician, and they just want to help each other in Cleveland, and I think that's really special.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
Yeah.
JC.
No, yeah, it's just a different. I mean, I've been to other cities like Nashville and stuff, and there's just this, you know, dog eat dog mentality. Like, well, why did you get that show? I want, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's all this weird like competition vibes going on in the Cleveland community. I mean, there's at this point between Allison and myself, there's probably no musicians that we're not aware of or have met or played a show with in Cleveland or have some type of rapport. You know.
Yeah.
It's even you're out there 110%, and it's like there's no ill will. Now the cover bands, however, I think there's a lot of weird stuff going on there, but that's a whole different world. But the you know, the original music community, I mean, it's beautiful. It's all harmonious as far as I can tell. I've never really had a bad experience.
Was it, and like I've been on this concept recently of this Wootenism, where Victor Wooten has this whole spiel where he tells his mom he like practiced for 12 hours, and she's like, cool, how's that affect me? So his whole thing has been trying to figure out how to take what he does and share that and help other people do more than just for him. And
yeah,
and one like, you guys have every crazy idea with I've pitched to you guys to help some type of community or some type of fundraising thing. You guys have always been on board, and I think it just comes from you guys being who you are and like doing the same thing and seeing how that affects people, and how one person seeing you can get enough courage to come back up and do it again, and then build their own thing from it. And it's so important, because most of what we're doing is like showing that other people can do it. And as soon as we don't make it about that, as soon as it is about look at what I can do, as opposed to look at what's an option for you, it becomes a completely different thing. And that kind of makes sense with like the cover band thing, because that's a market. You know what I mean? That's a business.
Yeah.
That's a business thing. And like, and
they are competing.
Right. They are
for the gig.
Yeah. Because there's like 3 Pearl Jam cover bands, and I'm sure Eddie's spoken in like 10 and a half or whatever, or trying to get the House of Blues too. But I think that speaks so highly of who you guys are and the music that you made. And just as a friend and as a fellow peer musician, I'm super proud of you guys. And this record is so good. And I'm excited for the show on the 20th. And like, I'm excited to see what comes next. So this is
there's a whole nother record done and ready.
That's what
we already
so sick.
We have all the songs. We just got to go and record them. So we were busy, even though we weren't playing out during the pandemic. We kept busy.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot of the new music at the show. The first half is the first 4 songs on the record, essentially, and then all the new stuff in the middle, and then the back half, the rest of the record.
Very cool. Very cool. Is there anything else we want to plug before wrapping it up?
No, House of Blues, August 20th, and Stay the record and all streaming services.
You can go ajinthewoods.com. You can buy vinyl, CD, digital download, or you can come to the show and buy them there too.
And that will help us, make the next record. And the other bands that are playing is Brent Kirby, because we threw it back to our roots our first time playing together.
Oh,
by 10 by 3. So he's gonna open the show acoustically. And then the Morning Bird, Jeremy, our bandmate and bass player, that's his band, fantastic folk rock band.
Yeah.
And then to bring in some energy before we get up there, Mikey Salas, Apostle Jones.
Nice. That's a banging lineup too. But that's also all the people that are into bringing up the community and supporting each other as well.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Those are the people that also need that amplification. Like one, and also just on another tangent of this, it's really interesting, like how other people, when they come to Cleveland, are trying to be sold on Cleveland. Like I've had some people ask me during these type of things, like, should I check out Cleveland? I'm like, yeah, everyone's super supportive. It's like Mike Night at Front Street every Wednesday. Like everyone's
nice.
Everyone's supporting each other in whatever they're trying to do. Everyone's going to get up there and back up Dave Myers and Quentin, And it's so beautiful to see everyone grow from that and do their own thing. But anywho, awesome, friends. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me and making this happen.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having us.
You coming 20th? We're going to see you?
Well, I'm going to try. We got that gig at this house party thing. So depending what time I get out, I'm going to try to swoop in there. But it'll definitely be, I'll miss most of everyone else if I can make it.
Yeah, I think, what time, Allison, we taking the stage? You think maybe 10?
Yeah, 9:30, 10, depending on how we're gonna if sets are, if set changes are quick, it'll hopefully be 9:30.
This has been the first show that we've put on ourselves since I can remember, since before the pandemic.
There's I don't know, like when me and Cody really get together to plan like a release show or something like that, there's like this other camaraderie and all these aspects of a show, like maybe you didn't look at the same way. I'm sure like now that not doing Front Street, I'm sure you look at that the same way kind of now, just all the time. Just on, like a lower scale. Like but it's I don't know, it's kind of cool. It's like it's us against the world type thing, and like in the positive way,
Yeah, it feels like that, There's only so many, like what's the most recent, and when I say make it, I mean paying your bills with music. Like what's the most recent person you can think of that's come out, or band that's come out of Cleveland that's doing it?
Right.
I'd probably say Welshly Arms, and that was still 7 years ago, maybe 8.
Right. Well, that's like big scale. Yeah, Welshly Arms for sure. But as far as like smaller scale, like I'm like Oregon Space Trail's doing good. The regular homies we see, are pretty doing like. But I'm trying to like, as far as like making the bigger market scene, like I don't know. Like I think you're right with Welshly.
Yeah, so it's just a keep doing the art.
Definitely,
that's the name of the game. Keep doing the art.
Yeah.
Maybe some people appreciate it. Maybe the right person will hear it and take you with them. Maybe you just. I always said it's a constant game of being relevant and being around. Most of the bands that we started with in 2015 that we were playing shows with are no longer bands.
Right.
The only one I can think of is Knights, and they were a band well before we were, and that's probably it.
Well, and was Megan's band around then, or did they start post?
No, they started, I think, in the middle or after.
Yeah, because she's been around doing the stuff, but the band has been different.
Yeah, she was doing the open mic for a long time.
Oh yeah, I went to Megan's open mics.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I can't really put a finger on some names, but I think it's a longevity thing too. You keep writing and making semi-decent art. I would never say my art's good, but I'm happy with it. But I think if you just keep at that, good things come with that eventually, hopefully. That
longevity or perseverance will equal success somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't mean in which form it's successful, but in some way it equals success.
And that's running Front Street Social is one of my favorite things to do ever. Yeah. And I talk to some of these young bands, and they go, "Well, how come we're not getting booked here and getting booked here?" And it's like, "Well, how long you been a band?" "Well, 6 months."
Exactly.
Okay. I'm on 7 years, and there's some places I want to play that I'm not getting booked because I'm not there yet. I said, you got to do those Thursday night shows in the tavern at the Beachland to, your girlfriend and 2 of your buddies at midnight, and get up and go to work the next day. You're going to have to do a lot of those gigs. Those gigs are very important. That's called forging.
Right.
Forging the fire, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a paid practice, and those are worth it.
Definitely.
And once you do enough of those, yeah.
You get it, yeah. Like I was thinking, like someone was asking me something. I'm like, we've been a band for 10 years, and we finally got 2 yeses. And
yeah.
Then, and then Yellow Man canceled. So it's like, it's really it's a self-fulfillment thing, but it's also like outward growth too. It's not like, it's a balance of the two. You gotta love what you're doing, and love that other people are like can see themselves doing what they're doing through what you're doing. Whew, I said doing a lot.
I mean, what's cool on Front Street too, there's been a couple bands that you have even seen blossom out of here, and they don't come back because they're a band playing gigs now.
Right.
But they started at an open mic.
And it's the best. It's the best because that's where I started. It was an open mic.
That's where Allison and I started.
That's where we started. That's the best option when you're new and you need to like learn how to play out live in front of people.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna get to editing and sending that here soon. I appreciate you guys. Super proud
thank
of it.
you.
And Saturday's gonna be the shit.
Awesome.
Thanks, Zig.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Okay, see you later.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.